Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 12th episode of Stacking the Box. It is 5:02 p.m. Eastern, which means as of an hour and 2 minutes ago, the new league year for the National Football League has begun. No Sterling today. Joining me is my good friend Cody Williams. What's up, Cody?
Just ready for all the free agency moves to happen because surely nothing happened before the actual start of the new league year in free agency.
Yes. And even pre-tamper period, because the tamper period started Monday when that ended. Surely no one actually talked to players or players talked to teams before that, right?
Never. It's never happened before, and only your Falcons get penalized for
it. Yes, correct. Obviously the NFL season doesn't really ever truly end. The new season started an hour and 2 minutes ago, so we got a lot of news, a lot of free agent signings, a couple trades, a couple releases to talk about today. Starting with, I guess we'll start, Cody, with Josh Allen, $330 million extension for the Buffalo Bills. Big contract for him. Does he deserve it? What are your thoughts overall about Josh Allen getting the bag, as they say?
I mean, I think my first reaction to it is that the Bills are smart to do it because Josh Allen is still going to be one of the best 2 to 3 quarterbacks in the NFL a few years down the line, whenever the original contract he had signed was about to come up. So when you can get the market, beat the market to such a deal, I think it's smart on the Bills' part. And my thoughts on Josh Allen are he's really damn good, man. I think you can win a lot of football games. I think Josh Allen is going to win a Super Bowl at some point. I know that's bold to say because the Bills are relatively cursed, but Josh Allen is that kind of player.
Did I see somewhere that Josh Allen has the same contract as this could be wrong, as Trevor Lawrence? It is, right? 55 million a year, same as Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I mean, if the Bills can sign Josh Allen to the same contract, I'm sure there's some differences, but overall the same at least yearly salary as Trevor Lawrence, I think they're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's good business if you have a player who is exponentially better than Trevor Lawrence has been in the NFL, if you can lock him up to the same deal.
And I still believe the highest paid quarterback in the NFL is Dak Prescott, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Your boy, Dak
definitely worth it. I love Dak as a Cowboys fan, but that's a little egregious. And just shouts to Jerry Jones for waiting until the last minute and waiting until the market's already set before you pay your players. That's really smart business. Way to let Myles Garrett, which we're going to talk about in a second, sign his extension before Micah Parsons signs his. Good job.
Yeah. Prescott making $60 million a year, $5 million more a year than Josh Allen and other notable quarterbacks. And Dak Prescott, honestly, what ranking is Dak Prescott as quarterback in the NFL? 15? Is he the definition of kind of an average quarterback?
Ooh, I would have him top 12. I would have him a little above that mid tier.
Yeah. Last year, obviously he was hurt last year, but the argument didn't work in his favor last year. No. 10P Kid says Trevor Lawrence working at Citgo soon. Yeah. I've gone back and forth on Trevor Lawrence. Are you a Trevor Lawrence guy? Do you still have faith?
I do still have faith. I mean, he's not exactly had the smoothest landing to his NFL career, which you do worry about the scar tissue there. But at the same time, I saw what he did at Clemson. He was legit at Clemson. He was legit coming into the NFL. And you come into the Urban Meyer situation, that's going to get you off to a little bit of a rocky start. So I'm not sure Liam Cohen's that guy. I'll say that.
Yeah. Duval.
Exactly.
Another player who signed an extension, one that I was heartbroken by, Myles Garrett, who I'm an idiot for not realizing that his whole I just want to go somewhere that wins and I don't want to play here anymore is not just a negotiating tactic. And it was very smart for him to do it right before going to Super Bowl and going on Media Row, where I talked to him and I made my pitch. Come to Atlanta. I made my pitch to 2 players. The other one's still available. We'll talk about him a little bit later, but I made one pitch to Myles Garrett, but I was hoodwinked. He didn't even want to go anywhere. He just wanted to get paid. Or maybe just he actually did want to go somewhere and the Browns just offered him so much money that he is an offer he couldn't refuse. Which of the two, Cody, do you think it was? Do you think it was a negotiating tactic from the start, or do you think he truly wanted to leave Cleveland, but then they just threw so much money at him he couldn't say no?
I think it's probably a little bit of both, and I'm not trying to cop out there, but when you throw $40 million a year at a non-quarterback, that's going to be hard to turn down. I don't care where you're playing. You could be playing in Kazakhstan, and you can pay me $40 million a year to go play in Kazakhstan.
Ronaldo, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Shouts to is it Al Nassr? Is that the name of the club that he's on?
Sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah, right. But I do think if you're Myles Garrett, there has to be a part of you that you do actually want to go to a good team. You do want to go to a franchise that isn't paying Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract to not play and to be a horrible human being. You probably do want all of those things. But when $40 million a year comes around, it's kind of hard to say no.
I saw some people saying this about Myles Garrett, and this has always kind of been my issue with one issue I have with players in the NFL, and it's so hard to side with owners in anything related to contracts, but a player can, people say Myles Garrett will just play one season with the Browns, and then next year will be like, trade me or else I'm sitting out, and then he can just sit out. So maybe that's his plan. Maybe it'll be like, all right, pay me the money now, so I'll sign this contract, I'll play a year, and the next offseason it's either trade me or I'm just not going to play.
But see, if that is the plan, then that's a bad strategy by Myles Garrett, because if he went to a team that was actually functional and not the Cleveland Browns, they're not paying him $40 million a year. I don't care what the cap is. I don't care what the edge market is. That's he blew the rest of the edge market out of the water by more than $5 million per year in AAV. So I just he's not getting that money. And so now that contract becomes infinitely harder to trade because he's already signed for that amount of money.
Good point. But I mean, also, if he's not going to, because players do that, but then teams will eventually give in, even if it means they have to eat some of the contract, because then they just don't want to have a wasted guy on the roster, I guess. Because I'm trying to think of how many times a holdout worked against a player and the player just didn't play. I'm thinking of Le'Veon Bell did that one year, right, with the Steelers, and then he just sat out the entire season. But other than that, I feel like it works every single time.
That was the franchise tag though, which also makes that a little bit different with Le'Veon Bell. So he was like, I'm not playing without a new deal. I'm not going to play on the tag, which honestly, I respect that. I don't respect Le'Veon Bell too much anymore, but at that time, I respect the decision. Yeah.
10P Kid says, how can they afford that? They have to pay Watson $83 million next year. I'll never understand the salary cap thing. Cody sounded like more of a contract guy than I am, so I'm glad you're here with me.
I can't explain that one, brother. That's beyond my comprehension.
I don't know. And now they're also trying to get another quarterback. It's looking like maybe Russell Wilson. I know as a Falcons guy, there was rumors that Kirk was going to be traded to the Browns by the weekend. So maybe they can get a Russell Wilson type deal like the Steelers did last year and just not really have to pay a quarterback outside of Watson this year. And I think after this year, they can get Watson off their books or something. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was someone else that I was. I know
it's fully guaranteed, so they're gonna have to eat whatever's left on his contract. But if you can wait it out another year, that obviously that's 1 year less salary that you're gonna have to pay the guy. So next year, I guess it's a little more palatable.
Yeah. All right, and then another extension. This is a Cowboy, right? Because I can't pronounce his name.
It's Osa Odighizuwa.
There you go. Take it away about him, because
so he's one of the more underrated interior defensive linemen in the league, in my opinion. I think that because the Cowboys defense took a big step back after losing Dan Quinn, that he probably didn't get the recognition for a breakout season that you would really want him to, but he's worth every penny that they're paying him on this deal. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to misquote the stats, so I'm not going to say it exactly, more paraphrasing, but he was near the top of the league in pressure rate for interior defensive linemen last year, and had a lot of he's just an interior pass rusher, which the Cowboys have lacked for a very long time. So to lock that up, especially when you have questions after whiffing on the Mazi Smith pick, I think it's really smart to utilize your capital to lock Odighizuwa up.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of pass rushers are already kind of spoken for at this point. That was kind of the first. It seems like every year there's a position where immediately it kind of gets all locked up. And I think for pass rushers, it's pretty much it now, except for Trey Hendrickson, who's still obviously seeking a trade. Maybe he'll just end up re-signing with Cincinnati like Myles Garrett did. But it seems like if you're in the market for a pass rusher, it's basically gone. I know my Falcons got Leonard Floyd. He was kind of one of the last ones, which I'm happy with. He had more sacks last year than anyone else on the Falcons defense, so I'll take it. Obviously, I still want Trey Hendrickson, who I mentioned earlier was the second player that I pitched to the Falcons during Super Bowl week, so we'll see how that goes, but I probably not now that they have Leonard Floyd. But it seems like the pass rusher market has kind of gone almost immediately.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting too. Like, I don't want to think too far ahead to the draft, but this, like, edge is one of the, and pass rusher is one of the places where this draft class is really deep. And it's not deep in a whole lot of positions, but that's one of them where it really is. So it's interesting that the market materialized as quickly as it did, because normally you see that if there is a rich draft class at such a position, then you kind of see like the market kind of get a little tepid pretty quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, rich draft class for pass rushers. So I'm excited to see the Falcons draft a tight end. That'll be fun.
Of course. Maybe they'll draft another quarterback if they trade Kirk.
There you go. May as well. Need a second option. Yeah, Kirk's had a tough couple of weeks. I'll say that. Falcons fans, I'll say this as a guy who's on Falcons Twitter now, and obviously like the Falcons subreddit, Kirk has had a tough couple of weeks.
I mean, he can just go to Kohl's and spend his sorrows away.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. A little bit of a quarterback shuffle, which is just basically a lot of average quarterbacks are now going to be on different teams. All quarterbacks that you kind of evaluate as the same guy are now going to be starting again, but also just all on different. They all just traded which average quarterback is going to be on what team. So we'll start with Sam Darnold now. I guess I'll give him credit maybe a little bit better than average based on last year up until the last 2 games. But Sam Darnold now in Seattle with the Seahawks, not a team that we imagined him ending up on. But then after Geno Smith went to the Raiders, it does make a lot of sense for Seattle. It does kind of make sense, but also I'm not too sure. What are your thoughts on it? And then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not sure it makes sense either, just because what are you bringing Sam Darnold into? Because one of the reasons Sam Darnold worked in Minnesota last year was the situation he was in. Part of that is Kevin O'Connell, who I think is probably a top 3 head coach in the, like, I'm a big Kevin O'Connell guy. But also, you're throwing to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. You're throwing to TJ Hawkinson. You have Aaron Jones in the backfield. You have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And then you go to Seattle. A lot of question marks on that offensive line. You trade away DK Metcalf. You cut Tyler Lockett. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then I truly don't know another wide receiver on the Seahawks roster right now. Can you name one? Because I can't.
Yeah, there's a guy I've bet on a lot to score a first touchdown. What was his name? Oh, I'm blanking on his name. Yeah, but it's not good. It's not a good receiver room right now in Seattle.
Yeah, so you're putting him into a situation where I'm just not sure things are set up quite as well. They're probably set up better than the Jets. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to regress to Jets form. Thanks to producer Sean, they did just sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Jake Bobo was a receiver I was trying to think of. Shout out Jake Bobo.
I'm pretty sure Jay Bobo is actually, I don't mind him as a receiver. He's like your 3rd or 4th option.
Yeah, he's like a good depth guy. Yeah, I have lost a lot of money betting on him to score the first touchdown though.
He also ran a 4.8 in the 40 at the combine, so he is hella slow. But if your number 2 option is either MBS or Jake Bobo, you're probably not in the best of spots.
My issue with them signing Sam Darnold is the Seahawks are right now in the worst spot to be in as a team, both as just kind of a franchise as a whole and as a fan of a team, is that they're just in no man's land where they're always they're like the Steelers of the NFC. They're just always on the cusp of making the playoffs. If they do make the playoffs, they lose first round. If they don't make the playoffs, they don't have a high draft pick. And it's so hard to get better as a team in that situation. It's actually the reason why, at least the justification they gave the Falcons last year for drafting Michael Penix, because in their minds, they weren't going to have a top 10 pick for a long time. So if you have a top 10 pick, because any quarterback that's going to be a franchise quarterback for the most part is probably going to be a top 10 guy. Yeah. And if you never have a top 10 pick, then you just end up having Sam Darnold as your quarterback or Geno Smith as your quarterback or, Russell Wilson as your quarterback or, Matt Ryan, as your quarterback, old Matt Ryan. Don't want to disrespect, prime Matt Ryan, but that's kind of the cycle that some of these teams get into. And it seems like if I was a Seahawks fan, I would rather them just literally play Sam Howell next season, have a top 5 pick and then go get your guy. But instead they, sign Sam Darnold, and now Sam Darnold's going to probably lead them to, 9-8 record and 1 spot over the playoffs and not have a high enough pick to get a franchise guy.
Yeah. I mean, those are all great points. And it does feel like, honestly, you have to wonder if the Russell Wilson era in Seattle kind of set them on this trajectory, because he wasn't a top 10 pick either. He was a 3rd round pick who just outperformed Matt Flynn. Let's not forget that they tried to sign Matt Flynn to a similar type deal at the time, something that would be comparable now, obviously, and inflation, the cap rising. But I do think that like that set them on a weird trajectory where Russell Wilson, yes, he won Super Bowls, but once he started regressing, you're always going to be good enough, but not quite good enough. Like, I think like that's kind of the space they're just going to continue occupying. And like, it's weird to see them trade Geno Smith to get to Sam Darnold, because it feels like a lateral move to someone who just happens to be younger.
Yeah. Now, if the Seahawks either had a young quarterback that could sit behind Sam Darnold for a year, similar with JJ McCarthy, Minnesota, or if they had an extremely good defense, then Sam Darnold could lead a team to a Super Bowl if they had a dominant defense. Because, I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time that like a team won a Super Bowl with like an average quarterback, and it was probably Peyton Manning's last year. Obviously, Peyton Manning's way better than an average quarterback, but in his last year, he was probably below average quarterback.
Yeah.
But
he was below average at that time.
Yeah, I think he had more interceptions and touchdowns that year, right? But their
it was
defense
bad.
was just so good that it didn't matter. Sam Darnold can be that guy, but the Seahawks do not have a defense that can carry a team to a Super Bowl by itself. So now they don't have any receivers either, as we mentioned. So
I do wonder if Seattle's line of thinking is that they can have that defense, though, because you got to remember they brought in Mike McDonald from the Ravens as their head coach, and so if they're trying to make the team in that identity of their head coach, maybe that's what they're thinking. The personnel's not there, so it might be a little premature.
Yeah. And then Geno Smith to the Raiders, which I could see that if what do the Raiders pick again?
They're picking 6th.
Right. So they might get a quarterback at 6th, right? I like Geno Smith as a bridge guy.
The buzz is that Ashton Genty at 6 is what they're looking at, the running back.
Yeah, okay. But he's not even the top running back on the board, though, is he?
Yeah, he is. Ashton
Genty, I thought he was the
absolutely.
Ohio State guy.
No.
Oh, okay.
Both the Ohio State guys are probably like day 2 picks.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it is Ashton Genty's the clear number 1. That's
100%.
That's gonna fix their team. So he's gonna be Saquon Barkley 2.0. So he'll show flashes of greatness, never do much, and then go to like the Eagles in like year 6 and like win Offensive Player of the Year.
Please don't wish that on me. I've already had to endure Saquon on the Eagles. Like, it's not fun.
Yeah, and then the year that like Saquon retires, that's when they'll sign Genty, and it'll just be
Can't wait. I'm looking so forward to it, Ian. Thanks for putting that in my brain. I'm gonna think about that every night for the next 4 years.
Yeah. And then the other quarterback shuffle that we saw is Justin Fields to the Jets, who we assume that he would be the starter next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which Justin Fields is one of the craziest enigmas in the NFL in the sense of the public perception of him. There are still people out there who think Justin Fields can be a great quarterback. Despite the numbers, I truly think it's people who haven't actually watched a full Justin Fields game, because Justin Fields is a guy who once a game or once every 2 games will have an unbelievable highlight that you'll see on social media. And then people will see that and be like, oh man, this guy can ball. Just give him the right situation, get him an offense, get an offensive line, get him a good coach. This guy can be a top tier quarterback. But if you sit down and watch a Justin Fields start from start to finish, he's not that guy. And he's had enough chances.
No, and I think part of it, I'm not like a Justin Fields truther by any stretch of the imagination. I don't hate this move for the Jets for 2 reasons. One, part of what you're describing is I watched him a lot at Ohio State, and he was damn good at Ohio State. And so I remember him coming into the draft and thinking, this guy has all the talent in the world. He has not put it together in the NFL. And there's nothing in the NFL that would make me believe in him. It's just, I can't get the Ohio State out of my head. But why I really like this for the Jets beyond that is, if you still believe there's some untapped potential, it's kind of what you were talking about with the Seahawks. Bank on a young guy like Sam Howell, which Justin Fields and Sam Howell at this point in their careers, not that dissimilar. Both have had opportunities. Both didn't really capitalize on those opportunities. If Justin Fields hits, then the Jets just struck gold. If he doesn't, you're picking at the top of the draft next year in a much better quarterback class. So therefore, you're setting yourself up, if you're the Jets, for a better future. You're either lucking into Justin Fields and him hitting, which is probably the least likely option of these two, or you're setting yourself up in the draft to hit the reset button and really start a future.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that, but I'm going to kind of go against what I just said. I actually feel like Justin Fields is good enough to lead a team to like 7 wins, though.
I mean, fair, but it's the Jets, so you got to take the Jets tax. So that's 5 wins.
Yeah. And I'm fascinated to see what the Jets defense is going to be, because they were a top 5 defense, top 3 defense under Salah, and then as soon as he got fired, they were like a bottom 5 defense. So like, I guess they have the skill and talent to be a top tier defense. But what is Aaron Glenn going to be able to do with that defense? Obviously, he's a defensive guy, so you'd hope he'd be able to do something. But I'm fascinated by the Jets defense next year.
And they also just lost DJ Reid at corner too. So like, it's going to be, and like, he was their best corner last year. So yeah, I mean, the Jets are always fascinating. I mean, it's fun when they fail. It's fun when they're good. So it's win-win for us in the content business.
Kenny Pickett to the Browns. Don't really care. Yeah, I mean, they're still talking about getting either Russell Wilson or Kirk. So I don't think they expect Kenny to be a starter, right?
But if he was, it would be hilarious.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of exciting to watch.
In not always the best ways, but exciting nonetheless.
Daniel Jones to the Colts. Let me ask you this, Cody. Who is a better quarterback, Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson?
That is a great question, Ian. And I think it's the question the Colts are asking. I don't know. I did not like Anthony Richardson coming out of Florida. He was not good at Florida. He's just a freak athlete. Wasn't a fan of Daniel Jones coming out of Duke. Wasn't a fan of watching him with the Giants. Well, let me be clear. As a Cowboys fan, I was a big fan of watching him with the Giants for the past few years. But to me, this is the Colts giving Anthony Richardson a very low bar to clear. Beat out Daniel Jones in a quarterback battle. That's all you have to do, and this is your job. If you can't do that, then get the hell out of here and get the hell out of Indianapolis, which I think is completely fair if you're the Colts.
Anthony Richardson just has every tool that you want. He's just not accurate. And I like, can an off season of just like throwing balls every single day, can that fix an accuracy issue? Is accuracy talent? Is it practice? Is it just like a skill you're born with? I would think accuracy you can fix.
I don't know if you can I don't think you can make someone Drew Brees overnight. Like, I don't think that.
Right. But they don't need him to be Drew Brees. But
no, they need him to complete 60% of his passes.
Right,
that's the bar we need to get to.
I was just going to bring up his completion percentage in his career is like 57%, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sub 60.
Last year was 47.7%. You simply can't have a quarterback who completes 47% of passes. And in the year before, 59.5. But only 4 games the year before. Last year, an 11-game sample size, he completed 47.7% of passes. And I don't know if I've ever seen a completion percentage that bad.
That's real. Like, that's like going back to like the 40s and looking at the NFL quarterback stats.
And this is in the modern age where like a lot of completions are fairly easy. Like, this is in the age of the bubble screen.
No, I mean, like Anthony Richardson, like to your point about accuracy, like he loves, a 3-pointer. He doesn't know how to hit a layup. Like, that's where Anthony Richardson is as a player. And like, that's a really tough place to be at. I don't have much faith in the Colts quarterback room. Let's just say that. Daniel Jones doesn't make me feel great about it.
No. And I actually don't have an answer for who's better because I truly actually don't know. Anthony Richardson certainly has a higher ceiling. No doubt about that. I mean, he completes 47% of passes, but then one of those passes each game is like a 60-yard bomb that's an absolute dime. And then you see that. And then like the next play, he'll like scramble to the pocket and like truck a guy and then like get the first down.
But also
run over 3 guys into the end zone, but then he's hurt. So.
Oh God, the Colts are just a disaster. Just bring back Joe Flacco. He was the better quarterback last year anyway.
Sometimes I'm upset being a Falcons fan, but there are other teams there's way worse teams to be cheering for right now than the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that's kind of the quarterback news so far. We're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. I read today, I don't know who tweeted it. I think it was Schefter said he has just not told anyone his timeline. No, I think people are like struggling to get a hold of him. He's just doing Aaron Rodgers things. Russell Wilson's going to Cleveland today to visit or tomorrow, and then going to New York to visit the Giants. And then a lot of whispers about Kirk Cousins potentially to the Browns as well. But if Kirk Cousins leaves in a trade, obviously the Falcons are going to have to eat most of that contract.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think like the big like thing with Kirk Cousins' contract is like a $10 million bonus or whatever, or injury guarantee, but they're going to have to pay that whether they cut him this year or next offseason. So who knows? Like there's a world where the Falcons hold on to Kirk Cousins. Like that's not him leaving is not a foregone conclusion.
Well, hey, be a great backup.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it gave you some validation since you did recruit him there. So.
Yes. All right, some other things that we can go through here. Bills release Von Miller. They signed Joey Bosa. This seems like a lateral move, like a veteran edge rusher on the back of his career who has some injury issues.
Yeah, I mean, like he's a little bit younger than Von Miller, and like in theory should be better if he's healthy, but that's not a guarantee. I think he's played under half a season in 3 of his last 4 years.
Yep. It's a lateral move. Doesn't really do much for me. Patriots are having an offseason so far that reminds me of the Titans offseason last year, where like no huge, massive moves, but like a ton of players were like, ooh, this team might be sneaky good next year. And that's what I thought last offseason. And then I bet on the Titans every single week, and they're like the worst spread team in NFL history. So Milton Williams, Harold Landry, who came from the Titans, if I remember correctly, Carlton Davis, Robert Spillane. Any thoughts on the Patriots?
I mean, this has Mike Vrabel's fingerprints all over it. Yep. Like, not only are you talking former Titans that he knows well, but also it's all defensive guys. And I can't quite get there with the Patriots, like, being, this year's version of the Titans for you last year, just because the offense was horrendous around Drake May last year, and you haven't done a whole hell of a lot to improve that.
Yes. I did like the picture of Mike Vrabel that came out. I think it was a Patriots fan tweeted it, and they were upset because it was like the night before free agency started, and it was a picture of him at a blackjack table, which I love.
You gotta love it, absolutely.
And he looks. I mean, this picture doesn't do him any favors. He looks blitzed. And he does have a beer in front of him. So shout out Mike Vrabel.
This is a man who when I believe it was actually, no, I remember distinctly, it was the COVID draft in 2020. And when they cut to his house, he just had a enormous dip in his lip, even though he knew the Titans were on the clock. So like, I don't think he truly cares at all.
Yeah. Shout out Mike Vrabel. DHop to the Ravens.
I don't care.
If you can't make a splash in Kansas City with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, like, okay, and you're going to have a similar role in Baltimore. It's going to be like a number 3 guy. Good. Hey, I hope he wins the Super Bowl, but.
I mean, this feels like when Odell went to the Ravens. That's what it feels like.
Right.
Like, a shell of the player he once was.
And there is kind of something to be said for a veteran receiver who is willing to play like the number 3 role and can be relied on in some tough situations. Because at the end of the day, DeAndre Hopkins is still DeAndre Hopkins. He's an older version of him, but a guy you can rely on the number 3 spot. I don't have an issue with it. I'm not going to say he stinks. No. But it's not like, oh, now I'm going to rush to bet the Ravens to win the Super Bowl because I signed DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like if this happened 3 years ago. Like, we'd be freaking out if this happened 3-4 years ago.
Right. Players get old. It happens.
We're getting old, Ian. Like, it happens.
Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah, seriously. Commander is actually one of the moves I like the most for a team. Commander's getting Laremy Tunsil.
Yeah.
Beef up that offensive line a little bit.
I don't know what the Texans are doing. Like,
I don't.
Like, your offensive line wasn't particularly good last year, and now you're trading Laremy Tunsil because he has some holding issues. Like, I think you can overcome holding issues for one of the better offensive linemen in the league.
Yeah. Good pickup for the Commanders.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Commanders, I mean, you got your left tackle. You traded for Debo to get another wide receiver in there. Like,
I'm out on Debo, though. But, yeah.
I am
They
too.
technically have another receiver, but, yeah, it's...
I am too, but at the same time, I don't think Debo is going to be the top option still. Like, you still have Terry McLaurin as your option 1. So if you're gadgeting up Debo as your wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, like, I don't hate that at all.
You know what social media posts bug me? When there's like a veteran player that signs and then it'll inevitably be like, it'll be like a FanDuel account will tweet out a graphic with like, it'll be like Debo, like Photoshop with a Commander's jersey on, and then like, and then Jaden Daniels and another player, and then the caption is, "Who's stopping this offense?" It's like,
oh my god, I hate it so much.
Like, Debo is not going to turn this. I mean, it's already obviously a very good offense, but it's not like same thing with DeAndre Hopkins of the Ravens. I'm not rushing to bet the Commanders to win the Super Bowl because I got Debo.
No, I would be rushing to bet the Commanders because Jaden Daniels took him to the NFC Championship game as a rookie. Like, that's why I'm doing.
Oh, they got Debo. Who's stopping this offense now? It's going to be the greatest offense of all time.
I mean, it's probably going to be pretty good, but it's not because of Debo.
Big story with the Eagles. I think a lot of Eagles fans a little frustrated with the offseason because they have lost 4 defensive starters already. CJ Gardner-Johnson to the Texans. Darius Slayton, re-signed with the Giants. They've lost some starters on defense. The Eagles have.
Yeah, they Gardner-Johnson, Milton Williams, who we already talked about going to the Patriots, defensive tackles, Darius Slay going to the Steelers, and I can't remember who. Josh Sweat on the edge. Also went to Arizona, I believe. But this is kind of the Eagles' DNA. Like Howie Roseman is one of the best drafters in the NFL, and you're kind of just turning the page over to younger guys like Slay. You have Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell on the outside, who you drafted last year. On the edge, you paid Bryce Huff in free agency last year to kind of be what Josh Sweat was as a designated pass rusher. Like, on the interior, you have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I think you're probably okay there losing Milton Williams, even though if it is a little bit different role. But, like, Howie Roseman trusts his drafting, and he's not going to overextend himself because they do so many cap gymnastics in Philly.
If I was an Eagles fan, I would just, like, they could do almost anything, and I'd just be like, yeah, I'm just going to trust you.
Yeah,
like there are a lot of idiots that work in the NFL and especially at like management levels that like can rightfully be criticized about a lot of moves. But I think with the Eagles, I think you can just like know that they're smarter than us and just trust them.
Yeah, like it's as a Cowboys fan, it's not Jerry Jones making these moves, who I have no faith is smarter than I am.
Right, exactly. Yeah. We'll see. I mean, the Eagles are still so good, and they're so deep defensively. I think they're probably going to be all right. Like you said,
I'm not worried about the Eagles.
Another team that has been making a lot of moves, especially on the offensive line, is the Chicago Bears. Actually, 2 former Falcons immediately signed with the Bears.
Yeah,
Grady Jarrett and Drew Dalman. Always Grady Jarrett on the defensive line, but offensive line they got a center and Drew Dalman. Who are the other guys the Bears got?
Jonah Jackson from the Rams.
Yes,
and Joe Thuney.
Yes. So they have immediately improved their offensive line, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I know last week we talked about the other offensive line moves that they made, but that is Ben Johnson. I said this last week. That's kind of what he's bringing from Detroit, which is a smart thing to do, which is build the offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, you look at what Detroit did before they made the Matthew Stafford trade. It was, we're just going to expend picks constantly on the offensive line and get that right, and then we can build the offense around that. That gives you the luxury to draft a Jahmyr Gibbs. That gives you a luxury to have Jared Goff, and Jared Goff probably in that top 15 range we were talking about earlier. But you know what? When everything around you is as good as it is in Detroit, you can do a lot with that. And now you have someone with like Caleb Williams, who is obviously uber talented, but you're getting the situation right around him.
Yeah, I really wanted the Falcons to re-sign Drew Dalman. We're gonna have to figure out the center issue. Probably just going to roll with the backup. Kyle Newzel, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. But he had to fill in because Drew Dalman was hurt half the season last year, so he had to fill in for them. So he did a decent job. But I am a little concerned about the Falcons center now.
It's not great.
Ryan Newzel.
I don't know. That's a name I'm not particularly familiar with either.
You don't know the Falcons backup center name?
I'm sorry, man. I don't.
Bro, do you know ball?
I don't know their long snapper either. I apologize.
Yeah. Shout out their long snapper. They actually re-signed him. This Liam McCullough.
Nice. That's a good name.
Yeah. So Falcons lost their center. Grady Jarrett one sucks. He's a solid player, but he's more of a fan favorite. Does a ton of things in the community. Falcons fans are more upset about his off the field. The loss off the field than necessarily on the field. He was a solid interior defensive lineman, but not like we're not going to lose games next year because we don't have Grady Jarrett. But that's a tough one for the locker room.
No, 100%. Like he's past his prime for sure, but like he's also going to be a solid player for the Bears too. Like he's one of those guys.
Yeah, he's a starter.
Down. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. What else do we got here? Saints signed Justin Reid.
That's a nothing burger to me, honestly.
We're getting down to the bottom of the barrel of free agent signings here.
The Saints are terrible. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. I know that's music to your ears, but
yeah, it's beautiful.
They're bad.
It's going to be a fun season for the Saints. I read they were looking to get rid of Derek Carr, but I read that because of their cap situation, they had to restructure his contract of pay out a certain amount of money they necessarily didn't have to, but because they're in such cap hell, they had to do it. And yeah, it's the Saints are tough Sucks.
It's not
Damn.
Good. Great for
That is
Michael
certainly-
Penix, though.
Yeah, that is one team I'm not worried about in the NFC South next year. Rams signed Davante Adams, released Cooper Kupp. A little bit of a confusing move to me. I guess you could say Cooper Kupp has some injury issues, but it sounds like you're releasing a formerly really good receiver on the back of his career, and then signing a formerly really good receiver on the back end of his career.
I think it really comes down to health. Like, I truly do, because Davante Adams has been healthier, and but neither of these players currently are what they were at like their peak powers, but they're also still very good players when healthy. And if Adams is a little bit healthier, I understand where you're coming from there. I can totally see Cooper Kupp signing somewhere, playing a full 17 game season and having a really big year, though. So this is something that they could come to regret for sure.
Could not find a trade partner for Kupp, though, so they have officially released him. So he's going to be free to sign with anyone.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Packers. There's been a lot of talk about them needing a veteran wide receiver one. I think he'd make a lot of sense in that LaFleur offense.
The 49ers have lost everyone. Juszczyk, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hafunga, Charvarius Ward, Jalen Moore, Leonard Floyd, I mentioned earlier, to the Falcons, Elijah Mitchell. I mean, Joshua Dobbs, not big as a backup quarterback, but lost a lot of guys, the 49ers have.
When you have to pay Brock Purdy $60 million a year, you've got to just let everyone else go. I think that's really what it comes down to. Obviously.
They kind of had that window of a rookie, not only a rookie quarterback deal, the cheapest quarterback of all time. You had that
the cheapest rookie you could possibly have that was drafted.
they had like 3 years of just absolute glory, and things didn't bounce their way. Brock Purdy hurt in the championship game, a few years ago when the Eagles went on. And then 2 years ago, lost in overtime in the Super Bowl. That's a heartbreaker. And then this past year, just everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for them. So,
yeah, it's you go back to the Seahawks, and I think this is why I'm more confused by the Seahawks than anything. The NFC West seems more gettable than it has been in a long time with the attrition the 49ers are seeing. So it feels like you're not capitalizing on that window. You're actually kind of putting yourself kind of just in that hodgepodge mix of potential 7 to 10 win teams.
Literally any of the 4 teams could win that division next year. I wouldn't be shocked.
No, not at all. Like you and I both like to talk betting. Like, I would not bet on the NFC West division winner to save my life.
No. All right, let's a couple of quick questions, and then we'll get out of here. Who won the first wave of free agent signings?
I think it's got to be the Bears. We talked about them already, but it's just Ben Johnson is making this team in the Lions' image, which is a good thing.
An offensive line was a desperate need for them, and they went and fixed that immediately.
Yeah, aggressively and immediately, which is two things I like.
I guess you could say the Patriots a little bit, but they still have nothing on offense is an issue. I think we both agree. I think it's the Bears.
Yeah.
And then let's just go with this. Let's finish off here. Which guy who is still unsigned that could make an impact?
That's a good question. There are some guys like Stephon. I think Stephon Diggs, when healthy, is still a very good player. He's still out there unsigned. So potentially Diggs, depending on the landing spot.
Cooper Kupp now.
Cooper Kupp, that's probably a really good one. Another one that I'm thinking of is Cam Robinson. Obviously, got traded to the Vikings midseason last year, but if you're the Patriots and you have the offensive line issues you had, maybe try to shore some of that up with Cam Robinson. You signed Morgan Moses, which he's 40, so I'm not sure what you're trying to do there, but there are enough offensive line needy teams, and Cam Robinson is a fine enough player that I think you can solidify the offensive line, even if you don't have a great offensive line necessarily.
Producer Sean says Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons didn't have that great of a season with Atlanta this past year. I know he's still obviously a big name. People recognize him, was very good in Denver before that, but didn't actually play that well with Atlanta this past season. So
yeah, there's a reason Denver was ready to move on. Just point blank.
I will say, obviously, this is not a free agent, but I personally still have a lot of interest in the Trey Hendrickson situation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the Bengals are a mess. The Bengals are an absolute mess, man. Their ownership's still cheap. Their ownership still is flexing that cheapness by trying to get a trade asking price for Trey Hendrickson that's just not realistic for a guy on an expiring deal. I imagine that price is going to come down. and he will get moved because I just don't see a world where I've never seen a world where they're going to be able to retain Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson. Frankly, I think they're only able to retain one. I still think it's a possibility T. Higgins gets traded.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. That's a storyline. Obviously, selfishly, I'm following the most here.
Absolutely.
As we kind of get into the meat of the offseason, a little over a month away from the draft, as well. So
almost here.
Actually, last question here because this is an interesting one, and then we'll wrap it up. Which quarterback goes from non-starter to Pro Bowler this season?
Oh God, we talked about the.
I mean, none. Obviously,
I like that's none is the easiest answer. I'm actually going to go with producer Sean's suggestion and just say on the off chance that this could happen, Zach Wilson in Miami. He's going to be the backup for Tua. I've long thought that the Dolphins have been doing themselves a huge disservice with Tua's injury history by having Skylar Thompson as the primary backup and then Tyler Huntley. We've seen Jets quarterbacks go other places and have success, especially when they're with good offensive coaches. I still think Mike McDaniel's a pretty good offensive coach. So if Tua were to go down, Zach Wilson, I think, has the best chance out of, we're looking at Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, and Kenny Pickett as his competition.
I'm going to say Daniel Jones. If either Anthony Richardson gets hurt or if somehow Daniel Jones wins that battle in training camp, which I don't expect because they're probably going to give Anthony Richardson another chance just because he's so young. But we saw what happened with Saquon Barkley going to Philadelphia. Now, obviously, the Colts are not Philadelphia, and Saquon looked a lot better in New York than Daniel Jones did. But with no offensive line and the disaster that the New York Giants are, I wouldn't be completely shocked if Daniel Jones puts together, if he does win the starting job, if he puts together a respectable season. He led the Giants to a playoff win the year before.
That's fair. And I can't dispute that because that's a fact. But he's also not very good. Like you talk about Saquon going from the Giants to the Eagles. Daniel Jones was part of the reason that Saquon needed that change of scenery.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, we got slim pickings here. So if I have to say either Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, Kenny Pickett, or Zach Wilson, I guess I'll go Daniel Jones.
To be clear, there are not any good options. No, the actual answer is none.
Yes, correct. All right, that is our show. Final thoughts.
Happy to be filling in. Happy to be back podcasting with you. I've it's been a minute. Super Bowl week was a nice little taste, but now we get to do a full pod together. It's nice.
Players Championship pick.
Daniel Berger, baby. Going long shot for my outright 65-1.
All right. Even though I'm mad at Colin Morikawa right now, I like Morikawa. If not him, Aaron Rye.
I also like Morikawa as well. In my fansided.com picks, I put 2 outrights down, one for Morikawa, one for Berger. So
there you go. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and subscribe to Stacking the Box on YouTube. The show will be back in some form next week. We'll see who's here. If it's me, if it's Sterling, if it's Cody, if it's who knows.
We'll put Sean on always, camera.
The NFL season never ends. So from here until the rest of eternity, Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, we will be live with some version of 2 of the 3, 4, 5 people who have been on the show. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.